What's good? It's Wood. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. Daniel Dubois, 15-0 with 14 knockouts versus Joyce, 11-0 with 10 knockouts. And I could have easily just flipped those names and actually introduced Joyce first. He is technically the more accomplished boxer at this point, and neither of them have a major belt in the heavyweight division. So naming Dubois before Joyce is more so a testament to Dubois' popularity, deserved or not, kind of placing him as the A side on this. Now, I'll overgeneralize here a bit. On the surface, this is a case of the talented versus the skilled, where you've got Dubois, the person who's naturally gifted beyond belief with the punching power and has been working on his game, no doubt. He's already been sparring with some of today's future Hall of Famers, so he is improving technically. But then you've got him versus a very late comer to the sport of boxing. But through determination, skill development, and undoubtedly some talent, Joyce earned a silver medal at the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio. And as I said, he was a late comer to the sport of boxing. The dude was a 31-year-old Olympian. Shoot, don't give up on your dreams, kids and adults. So Joyce has devoted himself to the sweet science, has developed rapidly, and has sparred with some future Hall of Famers himself. After turning pro, his first few fights were against, we'll call them easier opponents, and then he gets featured on the big undercard against Joe Hanks. And I have to ask my favorite fellow online boxing mind, Richard Dwyer, why he thought Joe Hanks was going to win that, aside from it being a swing for the fences betting play. I mean, Joyce was a minus 10,000 and Joe Hanks was like a plus 1,600, and Joyce did win that via first round knockout. So Joyce is highly touted. He just isn't as hyped as Daniel Dubois because of Dubois' Deontay Wilder-like knockout record. Different methods in scoring the knockouts, but similar early career history. But see, Wilder gradually worked up the ladder in the quality of his opponents. After first Hulk smashing some cans in 90s WWF type of dominance, you then gotta prove you can handle an Audley Harrison. Damn, nice. Okay, let's see how you do against a Malik Scott. Wow, okay. Bermaine Stiverne, the first fight, versus the very good Bermaine Stiverne, not the obliteration in the rematch. Stiverne was actually the first, and for a long time only, guy to take Deontay Wilder the distance. Wilder actually earned his WBC title that he held for a long time in that fight. He then had to defend that belt and won his next 6 title defenses via knockout. Then he had to defend it against a very scary opponent, Luis Ortiz of Cuba. Man, Wilder went through a near knockout loss, but re-emerged and won even that fight via TKO. I don't say all that to suddenly make this video about the former champ, but Daniel Dubois now would be that Deontay Wilder in his Audley Harrison phase, Malik Scott, those earlier stages of that Wilder trajectory, which is often such a fun time to witness in a fighter's career. There's nothing like watching the fight-by-fight climb of a Felix Trinidad, a Manny Pacquiao, a Lennox Lewis. So Daniel Dubois is just starting that serious climb in opponent quality. He's just finished crushing his cans. The problem is he's skipping the Audley Harrisons and the Eric Molinas, and he's headed straight towards one of the most under-discussed craftsmen in the sport. This could very possibly be too much too soon for Dubois. This ain't a sparring session with AJ, although those activities certainly help to sharpen your skills. Also, the discussion around the fight is a little bit misleading. Joyce is not the perceived knockout king of this matchup, but he has won 10 of his 11 fights via knockout. The betting public and odds makers have Dubois at anywhere between a 3-1 to up to about a 6-1 favorite. I mean, wow. Whereas Joyce is currently between a 3-1 and 4-1 underdog. I don't know if it's a recency bias or Joyce just kind of looking a little like Dominique Brazil, one of Deontay Wilder's latest victims, a one-punch first-round knockout at that. Maybe they just look at Joyce and picture him getting beaten up on the ropes or knocked totally out cold. I don't know. He doesn't have that weight room build of an Anthony Joshua or that long, rangy build of a Deontay Wilder, although he is 6'5", he kind of has the body type and the movement where he looks like he's kind of lumbering in the ring a bit. I think he moves a little better than he did a couple years ago, but he doesn't have the most authoritative presence in the ring. That said, he's obviously very effective. What worries me are some of his amateur losses by knockout. Before Joyce competed in the Olympics, he'd gotten knocked out twice in a couple of amateur world championships. All of these things appear to be lessons learned, but that just tells me that there is an off switch in there. I think that Joe Joyce will box well versus DuBois. I think that he'll frustrate DuBois. But I think that DuBois will actually box better than expected, even in the early rounds. In fact, I think they'll split the first few rounds, but I think that the younger DuBois will start to land more headed into the middle rounds. I think that Joyce will do all he can to put his well-developed skills to good use. Work the jab, move, tie up when needed. But I feel like DuBois will catch him at some point and drop him once or more for the finish. And that would be a very promising milestone in his career. One of those early career signature wins. Should he go on to become champion or do great things, people will then point to that as one of the early signs that he was the real deal. To UFC fans, think about when John Jones stopped Brandon Vera or Ryan Bader. DuBois should face a good amount of adversity, but will rally back and really put a beating on Joyce, who, when he gets hurt once, badly, I don't expect to recover well enough to survive. DuBois is a pretty patient stalker, and I expect him to eventually catch his prey. But I do understand the counter-argument and counter-theory proposed one by Richard Dwyer that the experience gap is too great between these two and that Joyce has done the wrench work and done all the heavy lifting, not in the weight room, but the proverbial heavy lifting in developing his skills and has been through more of the deep waters to where once DuBois gets into trouble and doesn't get his way the way that he's used to getting it against these cans that he's been crushing, that he's going to kind of freeze up, not really know how to deploy his arsenal at that point, and he's going to basically be drowning in there. There was a fight, I believe 2 or 3 fights back, where DuBois wasn't able to control the spacing and wasn't able to totally get his way, where you saw moments of uncertainty with DuBois. And Dwyer was pointing to that as being one of the main reasons he feels Joyce is going to win this fight. I just think that it's more likely that Joyce, although he is the more skilled technician, is going to have his chin tested by a devastating hitter who will hit him, because I also think that this devastating hitter isn't totally devoid of skills. I think he does have enough skills to be able to catch up with Joyce at a certain point. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. And in these contender versus pretender crossroads fights, DuBois does need this win. But DuBois doesn't need the win like Joe Joyce needs the win. If DuBois loses, well, he's 23. He's got more than enough time to get things back on track. If Joyce loses at 35, there really isn't much time to have to spend the next 1 to 2 years fighting career rehabilitation fights, to then be 37, 38 by the next time you might get a sniff at the title. Ask Joseph Parker, ask Dylan White, and both of them are much younger than Joyce. Yeah, once you lose, if you do lose in a big way, that road back to the top is a long one. And this isn't even a championship fight. This is an important prospect versus prospect fight. So Joe Joyce absolutely needs to win this. It can be an outstanding feel-good story if he does execute his game plan, beats the young killer with the buzz, and totally spoils the party. It's kind of hard not to root for a guy in that position with this opportunity. And hell, they say skills pay the bills, so maybe it does happen. But I just don't trust Joyce's chin for 12 rounds versus someone who has, I'll name him again, Richard Dwyer, pointed out, knows how to cut the ring off, and who's also about the same height as Joe Joyce. They're both about 6'5". And what makes this really fascinating matchups-wise is the fact that Joe Joyce also has good power and probably has the mechanics to deploy his missiles more reliably and effectively. There's just something about DuBois' apparent one-punch knockout power that has me hesitant to roll with Joyce, although those lopsided odds do make it attractive. But I'm going with DuBois here by KO TKO. But let me know what you think about this matchup, about both of these fighters' place in the heavyweight division. Leave your comments in the comments, and please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the Fight Talk. I'm Wood. Thanks for tuning in.